currently where we are at quantum right now, where do you see the biggest opportunity?
Technology sovereignty is the top agenda for many countries, and especially for India, because at any time we can be denied technology.
A lot of companies are also coming up, setting up data centers, and at the same time, Indian companies want to set up data centers.
Too much noise around data centers. What do we need data centers? Data centers should be in places where there is.
Do you think right now we need more product companies coming out of India, or do you think we should continue the services part?
Today what is our per capita income? $2,600 per person in the country. To get out of this middle income trap.
Bhavesh Agarwal some months back was saying OpenAI and all these companies are like the East India company of the modern ages.
He's right. Till now, the thought was that a powerful quantum computer, when it appears anywhere in the world and could be an enemy-led China, they could actually, bring down our cyber security systems all over the country. And that will be an absolute disaster.
Hi Ajay sir, thank you so much for joining us today at AIM and welcome to What's the Point podcast. Firstly, I would like to congratulate you because HCL just celebrated its 50 years anniversary and you must be also very excited about how the journey has been. Can you tell us a little bit about how you're feeling and how things are right now?
Absolutely, it's a wonderful milestone. Actually, the 50 years would get completed in August.
Okay.
But the celebrations have started already. From the day we started in 1976, 6 of us starting the company was very amazing because those were the days when there was nothing called startups. And we created our own computer. We designed everything ourselves and we launched it around the same time that Apple announced its PC.
Yes.
So it's been a terrific journey since then. Of course, we can continue to do hardware. And then we got into system integration and then carried on to create HCL Technologies from the R&D of the original HCL company.
Yeah.
And then started to do engineering software exports and got into other software areas. So that's how the journey has been.
Yeah. I mean, when I look at HCL, I always get very proud because I think this is one of the only or one of the very few companies that are actually building products for the world. And I think that is something you stand for as well. You've been promoting that for a very long time. So, can you tell me a little bit about the journey of starting HCL and how did it start? Like the six of you started it.
Well, actually, 6 of us used to work for DCM and DCM data products. And then one day we all felt that we are not getting the right attention in DCM data products to scale. And therefore, we took a decision to leave DCM and start our own computer company. It was a very tall task because all we had was all our savings and all that amounted to was 1.86 lakhs. But when we started out, we discovered that for making computers in India, you needed a license to make them. And that was a very tall task. So, and we were just a startup. And those days, there was nothing called startups. So in any case, we started a marketing company and started marketing calculators. And in the meantime, we started to work on how to get a license and how to get to design and make computers. Fortunately, we discovered that UP government was sitting with a license. And we went to them and said, why can't we form a joint sector company? And that's what we did. So we got them to take 26% equity. And we started Hindustan Computers Limited.
Yeah.
So that's how the whole thing started initially. And for many years, we were in the hardware business and we were one of the pioneers. We created a computer around the same time Apple created its first PC. And so in a manner, we were global pioneers, but we didn't know that at that time. We were sort of a closed country. And from then onwards, we went into system integration, we went into infrastructure management, and then software development, and then engineering software, and then HCL Technologies got set up out of the R&D of HCL at that time. And that's how we kept growing. And from a 1.86 lakhs investment, today the company is around $14 billion globally.
Yeah. So, Ajay sir, do you think if you had to start HCL now, how would the journey be different? Now it would be called a startup, as it was not called a startup then. But do you
Well,
think they would?
actually, we would have scaled to be a global hardware company if we were to do it today, because there were too many impediments to growth those days, because the government policies were not very positive for the hardware business. And then in 1999, government decided to set up a process by which they signed the WTO agreement, WTO ITA agreement, which completely ensured that by 2005, the world could come into India and sell IT products and hardware products at zero duty.
Yeah.
And that opened the market too early, before the market was really ready with domestic products and domestic companies. And the whole electronics industry died pretty much in the next 5 years. We survived because we were a big company, but most of the other companies died, and the SME companies especially, they collapsed. It's
Yeah.
only in the last 5 to 7 years we are seeing this phenomenal support from the government, and the current government is extremely supportive of the hardware business, and electronic manufacturing is happening in a big way, and then semiconductors are happening. Exactly what I wrote in 2009 in my report to the government, to say we must have semiconductors in India, we must design and make computers in India, design and make products in electronics. And all of that did not happen, but only when the new government came in the last 5 to 6 years, all this has happened. And with this kind of environment, we would have been a global hardware company.
I was looking at your LinkedIn as well, and there was a post from 5 months ago, I think, where you said that if I had to start a hardware company, this would be the perfect time because PM
Right.
Modi is supporting it a lot. But I
That-
think at the same time, when you come into the industry and a lot of startups are also coming here, people are still on both the sides. Some are saying that the policies are creating bottlenecks. Some are saying that they're enabling it. So, what is your view on that right now?
Very good today. Very supportive of hardware.
Anything specific that you would want to point out? Why would you start the HCL hardware business now?
I would start it because, number one, funding is no longer a problem. Those days, funding was a huge problem. There was nothing called startup funding. There was nothing called angels or VCs. Today, all of that is available. So, and then government is funding in a very big way.
I was looking at your blog, and after you left HCL at 62, you joined the Lutf Foundation. We started singing, and I had requested you if you can please sing a song for us, but I'll come back to that later, and I'll let that go. But at the same time, I wanted to ask you if anything you would like to say in the memory of Asha Bhosle, who recently passed away.
Well, what can you say about Ashla Bhosle that has not been said? She was an amazing, amazing singer. 11,000 songs in a career spanning 50, 60 years. I mean, most amazing. And she had a voice which was totally different, and could sing anything that you asked her. She could sing indie pop, she could sing ghazals, she could sing fast music, she could sing slow music. I mean, she was marvelous. And what a loss it is.
Yes, definitely. And if you had to choose, because I was looking at your profile and all the videos that you sang, if you had to choose, who would you choose before Kishore Kumar and Mohammad Rafi?
Uh, uh, I wouldn't choose anybody before Mohammad Rafi.
Oh, okay. I thought you were a Kishore Kumar fan bigger than
I am
Mohammad.
a great Kishore Kumar fan, but Mohammad Rafi was a class of his own.
Yeah.
So I would place Mohammad Rafi number one, and then, yes, Kishore Kumar after that, because Kishore was a maverick. Never knew classical music, but could sing anything you wanted him to sing.
Okay, yeah, definitely. I can agree on that. So, Ajay sir, coming to your personal story again a little bit. I was looking at your personal journey, and you were born in Mount Abu, and then you went to Christchurch in Jabalpur, and then you also went to Jabalpur Engineering College. I'm also from Jabalpur. Like I was born there, and I studied there as well. So I just wanted to understand like a motivational journey, like someone coming from Jabalpur and going to become the father of Indian hardware, and then getting the Padma Bhushan award as well. So, what advice would you give to people who are coming out of Jabalpur like me?
Well, actually, today the opportunities for small cities is as good as big cities, because in a manner the country has become flat due to the whole advent of internet and social media, and therefore there is nothing that stops people from smaller cities to be as successful as people from the big cities, and that's been proven by many examples today. And you see, Zoho is born out of a little village in Tamil Nadu, and it's a global $1.5 billion company in software. So nothing stops people to be successful. Where they come from is not relevant anymore. And of course, sports is a very good example where Dhoni came from a small city and became the captain of India. So it's all about aspiration at the end of the day. And I wrote a book a few years ago, which is called Just Aspire. And the whole thinking was that if you have the aspiration, you can achieve anything.
Yeah, definitely. Anything you specifically remember from Jabalpur that you can point out?
Well, it is, I still love Jabalpur. I still keep going there once in a while. And I'm in touch with my school alumni and my college alumni. And they keep inviting me for various functions. And I do visit it quite regularly. And there's a lot of love that I got in Jabalpur when I went to launch my book there. And I remember my school and college alumni got together to have my book launched there. And they had invited 150 people. And so they had planned to keep 100 odd books there for people to buy. And then 350 people landed up.
Oh, nice.
So the kind of love I got, the kind of attention I got was so fantastic. And we actually ran out of books in the next half an hour.
Oh, crazy.
So it was quite crazy. So anyways, it was a great experience. And then once the function finished, various people landed up on the podium, and some people brought their sons, some people brought their nephews and sisters and brothers, and everybody wanted to take a picture with. So it
Yep.
was a wonderful experience.
I think I
Lot of love I got.
I think someone said that ये छोटे-छोटे शहरों की बातें ऐसी होती है, ऐसे जबलपुर में कि
बिल्कुल,
everyone is
Kind of
that.
attention, kind of love and attention I got that day was I cannot ever forget.
Definitely, yeah. So Ajay sir, coming to the topic a little bit now. So we wanted to talk about quantum today, and tomorrow is the World Quantum Day. So before we dive into it, before we dive into the problems, the challenges, the opportunity, I just wanted to understand from you, how would you explain quantum computing to a 13-year-old, 18-year-old, and someone who's working in quantum computing as well?
Well, actually, if you look at classical computers, which are the ones that are used for finance and accounting and sales, etc., these work on 0 or 1, 2 states. These are called bits. Quantum computers work on 0 and 1, and these are called qubits. So as a result of working in 0 and 1, they are much faster than the normal classical computers. But classical computers are used for regular work. Quantum computers are used for very advanced technical and other work. For example, quantum computers are used for drug discovery. Quantum computers are used for climate work. Quantum computers are used for very high level of financial predictions, etc. So many use cases are there where quantum computers are million times faster than classical computers. So that is where the world is going. Today, quantum technology is where AI was 5 years ago.
Okay. So do you think currently where we are at quantum right now, even in India, China, globally, where do you see the biggest opportunity? Do you see there's enough adoption? Do you think we are researching enough when it comes to quantum?
Well, actually, the world has changed since the time we launched the quantum uh, mission. At that time, the world was, uh, multipolar. But one person has changed the world, and that today has become a unipolar world. What that fundamentally means is that technology sovereignty is the top agenda for many, many countries, and especially for India, because at any time we can be denied technology, and therefore we need to own technology, we need to develop our own products and subsystems, and therefore setting up the national quantum mission was extremely timely by the government, and a cabinet decision was taken in 2023 to actually launch it, and 2024 January is when we got going. So at this moment I would say that I'm last we actually reviewed the quantum business where we stand today. And 2 days ago, we actually had a 2 day session in Bombay where we actually reviewed every part of quantum mission. And we talked to literally every top scientist that was working on this. And we were able to very minutely figure out where we stood in each of the areas. So I can give you a view of where we stand.
Yeah. I would love to know the view where we stand because the national quantum mission is going on. Then each state is separately hosting their own quantum missions and day. So why do you think there's an urgency right now to focus on quantum?
Actually, as I said, the real urgency is because of technology sovereignty. Because everybody is now going to try and protect their technology. And therefore, importing quantum computers and importing products will become more and more difficult, and sanctions will come in very soon. So, as a result of that, we need to develop all areas of quantum technology. So, the first area is quantum computing. In quantum computing, there are many technologies and materials that we can use to create a quantum computer. The most popular one is superconducting quantum computers. Now, when we started out, we had created a 7-qubit superconducting quantum computer in TIFR labs. And now we are sitting this year at 64 qubits. And one of the startups has actually made a chip of 64 qubits. And we expect this product to be ready by about third quarter this year. So we have made quite a lot of progress from 7 to 64. Our target was to create a 1,000-qubit computer in 8 years. So we basically crossed 3 years, and hopefully in the next 5 years we would be going towards the 1,000. We are working also on multiple technologies because we don't know which technology finally will be the most successful in terms of creating the fastest quantum computer. So we are working on photonics, we are working on semiconductors, we are working on what are called uh, trapped ions, and etc. etc. So basically, the thinking is that we should invest in all of these technologies, and different researchers all over the country are working on it. The quantum hub for this, a quantum computer hub for this, is located at Indian Institute of Science, and that is what is leading the whole effort in quantum computing. Now, the next area that we are working on is quantum communication. Now, in quantum communication, we've made fantastic progress where we are pretty much world class already. So, here our target was to create a quantum secure network of 2,000 kilometers. We've already done 1,000 kilometers this year. So, we are very close to achieving our target in the next 1 to 2 years. And this is very, very critical for India because Quantum Day, as it's called, is approaching in the next 3 to 5 years. Till now, the thought was that a powerful quantum computer, when it appears, anywhere in the world and could be an enemy like China, they could actually, bring down our quantum, our cyber security systems all over the country. And that would be an absolute disaster. So to prevent that, we need to implement quantum secure networks all over the country. And we actually set up a task force for this. This task force report is already ready and we'll be releasing it soon. And in that, we are saying that by 2028, certain types of organizations must convert to being quantum secure, and the rest should do it in by 2029 and 2030. So we have selected the most important organizations. So the first lot is telecom, financial systems, electrical grids, and defense and security.
Okay. So why are we focusing on these sectors specifically? I think there was some. I was reading like Aadhaar is also one of the biggest threats when it comes to if you don't about the.
Yeah, so all of it, all of the government area we will be covering in the first floor.
Okay.
So that we will definitely do because Aadhaar comes under central government and then UPI comes under RBI, and RBI and all these regulators are already being informed about what we are doing. We have actually had discussions with each of them through our task force, and they're quite aware that something like this needs to be done post haste. So it is very, very, very dangerous for the country not to implement this fast enough. So first lot is, as I told you, the most critical infrastructure, and the next lot will be enterprises and others who should also ensure that they are protected from an attack by a quantum computer.
So can you give us an example? What kind of threats are we looking at? If a specific to one example, one or two examples.
See, basically today's cyber security is protected by a mathematical product called RSA. Okay. Now, RSA could not be cracked by anyone till now, and therefore it was very, very safe. But in quantum computing, there is something called the Shor's algorithm. And if you use the Shor's algorithm, you can crack RSA. Now, this will be absolutely possible when you have a very advanced quantum computer available in the world. Today, it's not available, but it is expected that something like this will be available in 3 to 4 years. Bain came up with this projection that we must prepare for it in the next 3 to 5 years. And Google came up with a projection last week, saying that we must prepare for it by 2029. So it is quite imminent, and it's absolutely important for different organizations to make themselves quantum secure. The good news is that we have both software products and hardware products available, commercial products available in the country through various startups, and the various companies can actually buy from them and implement their quantum secure networks.
Okay. So don't you think then the 3 to 5 year timeline is too long? Because you must be completely aware. I mean, you might know about this. US and China are already ahead of us when it comes to quantum computing. So do you think that 5 years would be too late to protect ourselves?
No, you see, we have actually set up a task force which has done all the recommendations. So by those recommendations, 2028 is when the critical infrastructure must be protected, and 2029 to 30 is when the next level of organizations like enterprises, etc., must be protected.
So if you talk to startups and everyone, if I take names and everything, a startup would say, "Abhi hum to AI ko adopt karna shuru kiye the. Now we have to adopt quantum also." So how are we going to help these startups? Are we going to motivate them? Now you have to adopt quantum technology as well.
You see, startups are very smart. And there are lots of startups where there are lots of PhDs who've actually worked in quantum technologies globally. So they've all come back to work in India. So when we started out, we discovered that there were very few quantum startups. But now I have a view that there are already 30, 40 quantum startups. And we funded 8 quantum startups last year. And this year we funded 17 total for quantum technologies. And we are not funding them at small amounts because they are more research oriented work. And therefore, we are providing up to 30 crores per startup, and in special cases, up to 50 crores. And two of the startups last year, we had funded 25 crores each, and both of them have delivered fantastic results. So we are seeing that startups are already coming up in this area, and there's a lot of interest globally in startups also. So India is not behind.
Okay. So coming to the sovereign aspect of it, a lot of AI startups right now are trying to focus on sovereignty and bringing language models and want to build language models for India. Where do you see quantum come into the picture over here?
See, basically, I have a view that LLMs in AI are already available globally. Now, to be sovereign, we need a few LLMs of our own, which I think have already been developed. So, Sarvam is one of them, and IIT Bombay and all the IITs put together have created another one. So, I think LLM is something that is fundamentally available already globally. Now, most of these LLMs are addressing the consumer market. The real use of AI is going to be in enterprises and applications which are absolutely needed for a country like India. So uh, we do not need LLMs for that. We need SLMs for that. And therefore, we are seeing that health will need a lot of SLMs, education will need SLMs, agriculture will need SLMs. So we need to have vertical SLMs available in India. And I think that is where the India should focus on. And recently, AI Research Institute has also been set up in collaboration with the central government, the state government of Gujarat, and the Pharma Alliance. And this has been set up in a gift city. And some diaspora from America have come back to head this institute. And I think they will focus on these three, four areas of research where they will work on creating products to help the country develop these products on SLMs.
Yes, I was also looking at IAIRO, and you're also one of the board members of that. I was speaking to Professor Amit, I think some 6 to 7 months back, who's the head of AIRO, and he is also very passionate about trying to build global products from India. He wants to build the Google from India. But Ajay sir, I want to ask you this: when we say that we have to focus on SLMs and LLMs have already been built, so don't you think that's pulling us ourselves a little bit back, like not building global LLMs and just focusing on use cases
So
and
we've already done two good LLMs.
Okay.
Sarvam has already done one, and the IITs have done the other one, and couple of others have been given funding to develop them. So it's not that we will not have our own sovereign LLMs, because today a lot of these LLMs are free, and they claim that they will continue to be free, but who knows? In about 2 years, they'll start charging for it. So we have to have our own LLMs, but as I said, LLMs will focus mainly on the consumer market. The real market sits in enterprises, and that is how they can benefit with AI by using SLMs rather than LLMs.
Okay, makes sense. I think some Bhavesh Agarwal some months back was saying OpenAI and all these companies are like the East India company of the modern ages. They're just
Absolutely,
coming.
he's right. He's right. That's what has happened in the country. Because if you look at even all the cloud companies in India, they are in a manner using our data. They are using our people, and they are creating business out of that. And OpenAI has a huge following in India. And why are they in India? They are in India because they see the consumer market to be huge.
Yes. So, what do you think about this sovereignty in data centers right now? A lot of companies are also coming up, setting up data centers, and at the same time, Indian companies want to set up data centers. So there's this clash over here again.
There is too much noise around data centers.
Okay.
Why do we need data centers? Data centers should be in places where there is huge amount of power and water available. What we are doing in the country is setting up data centers in Delhi and Bombay and Calcutta and and Bangalore. I mean, to set them up in big cities is completely a very very difficult task because we are just taking away power from the rest of the people. So I think data centers are not something that I favor. And what are these data centers going to do? And when somebody says, I'm going to invest 20 billion in the country, they are setting up these data centers to use our manpower, use our data, and use our power and water. And what do we get out of it? And they don't employ any people. They're all pretty much mechanized. So I don't see any benefits of setting up large data centers in the country.
Do you think we should set up data centers in space?
Oh yeah, that is where we should set up data centers in space, and we should set up data centers in places like Ladakh, where there is very very gold, and you don't need to waste money on cooling, etc., etc.
Okay. Next, I think there are plans to set up something in Ladakh. If I'm not sure about it, so I won't comment on it. But also at the same time, coming back to the product and the services wala question. So HCL started as a product company and eventually it's also started its services arm. Do you think right now we need more product companies coming out of India, or do you think we should continue the services part?
No. I think it's very very critical for us to be a product nation, and it's quite clear that services has taken us to a great extent towards being self-sufficient with foreign exchange. But I think for the next growth that we need to get out of the, today what is our per capita income? $2,600 per person in the country. To get out of this middle income trap, we need to be in the product business where we create our own IP, our own designs, etc., etc. And unless we have more value addition in the country, we are not going to be successful in creating a higher GSDP. So it's critical that we move from services to products because services now has a lot of headwinds due to AI and automation.
Yeah. But I think the government is doing its part, is trying to boost policies and everything. But do you think the private sector is innovating enough when it comes to building product companies? For example, if you look at TCS, Infosys, HCL, for example, they are the biggest companies in India right now and they have a lot of cash reserve as well. But why are they not making any breakthroughs like Google or Microsoft even now, even with the help of AI?
Well, HCL is very different. HCL has a $1.5 billion software product business,
Okay.
which none of the others have. And that was created by acquisition. So what HCL did very smartly about 8 years ago is to buy IBM software range of products
Yep.
for $1 billion. And that around that, they built the whole software product business, and it's called HCL Software. It's a separate unit of HCL.
Okay. And
So
what
it's
about?
the it's the largest software product company in the country.
Yes, for sure.
So HCL is the only HCL is the only software company that's done this, not the others.
But Ajay sir, do you think there's something like Google or ChatGPT coming out of India?
Why do we need to bother about that?
I mean, some buildings, some
I
global.
think there is enough work for us to do to create products out of India. We've created, see, the biggest challenge in the country is that if we create products in India and startup creates products in India, then the government must fill it up with orders, which is not happening. If you look at how the US created product companies, they created product companies because DARPA was the organization that would challenge a startup or a company, say, can you please develop a product? They would develop the product, and once they developed it, they tested it, they found to be successful, they would fill it up with orders. All kinds of companies have been born out of that model. You know, McDonnell, Douglas, Boeing, all of them came out of this kind of thinking, where they actually put in a whole bunch of orders with these companies. In India, if you look at the defense organizations, IDEX is a great example of trying to do the same thing as what our DARPA did. But IDEX today, after the companies actually create the products, take 1 year to place the order. And these kind of things don't work. We should actually focus on supporting Indian products. Government must create a quota out of total business. Let's say government is the largest customer in any country.
Yep.
So why can't the government say 50% of what we buy will be bought as Indian products? Moment something like that happens, the product business will take off.
Definitely, yeah, that makes sense. So I think a lot of people that talk about this building products and self-reliance as well, they always come to the question of Make in India, and the hardware story also comes in. So what is your view on Make in India? Do you think it is running successfully right now, or are we halfway there? What is the situation like?
When the Make in India program was launched, it was fundamentally meant to manufacture in India.
Yes.
But couple of years ago, Prime Minister Modi himself said, we should no longer look at manufacturing in India. We should look at design and make in India. And that is the real Make in India we need to do. We need to promote the design of products in India. And that is something that we have not done enough of. Today, large corporations do not do any design work. They go to China, pick up a product, put a logo on it and sell it. We become a trading country. I think that has to change. So the good news is that the government has set up a 1 lakh crore R&D fund, which is fundamentally focused on promoting the whole idea of product design in India. And that has taken off extremely well.
Okay. So why not completely Make in India, like the hardware part as well? Why are we just focusing on the designing part now?
No. Moment you design, you must make.
Okay.
So the whole idea till now was that you just bring in technology from outside, put screwdriver, put it all together and, assemble it. Today, it was very assembly oriented with very little value addition. Maybe the value addition was about 10 to 15%. If you look at the Apple, for example, what does Apple do in India? People bring in components to India, they assemble them in India, and the value addition is nothing more than 8 or 10%.
Yes.
But if you look at the global margins of Apple, they are around 70%. Why are they 70%? Because number one, they have a brand, and number two, they do the design. So the technology is theirs, and therefore assembly is a very small part of the total margin that they make.
Okay. Even if you look at quantum, I think most people are not even aware if they should focus on quantum or not. If what even is quantum? I think you explained it, but how do we raise that awareness about amongst people that why do we need quantum technology right now?
You see, already that work is going on from various hubs. And we are actually promoting the whole idea of quantum technology. We are making public aware also. But it's not absolutely necessary at this moment to do that because we should currently focus on designing and making these products in India and implementing them in organizations and government and enterprises. So that is where our focus is because it's got nothing to do with the common man. It has nothing to do with consumer area. It is fundamentally corporates and government where quantum will be utilized and research institutes where quantum will be utilized. So our focus has to remain on enterprises, government and research institutes who can use quantum computing and quantum technologies. For example, the biggest application, as I said, would be on drug discovery. So definitely pharma companies are already very interested in quantum.
I think one of the threats that is also highlighted when it comes to not adopting all these technologies is our biggest product, India's biggest product, that is the UPI. UPI is also under threat. Can you elaborate on that a little bit about how exactly UPI is under threat?
You see, UPI is not under threat. I think the biggest thing that I feel is that if you look at IT, just let's focus on IT. Look at every software product that is used by the government. and look at every hardware product that is used by the government. All the software products come from the US, and all the hardware products come from China. So we are completely encircled by these two countries having their technologies. This is not the status in China. In China, they have created all software products of their own. In government organizations, no non-Chinese product is allowed to be used,
Yeah.
whether it's a PC or a phone or whatever. Now, look at this situation when recently 3-4 things happened. Okay, US decided that Russia cannot take advantage of the SWIFT program.
Yeah.
Okay, so they put a sanction on Russia for not having SWIFT. Now that created a huge problem for Russia. The same thing goes for uh, Nayara Technologies in India. Nayara is a petrochemical company, joint venture with Russia. Overnight, Microsoft decided to discontinue serving them. And next day, none of the emails worked for them. Yeah, no employees could use emails. So these kind of sanctions can come in any time. And therefore, we need to create technology sovereignty in hardware as well as software.
Okay. So, Ajay sir, when you have been working with AI and all this technology for a very long time, more than decades, so what was your reaction when you first saw something like ChatGPT launched to the market and everyone started using it? Were you happy about it or were you scared about it? What was your first reaction?
Now, my first reaction was it's a great achievement, terrific achievement. And more and more of such products kept coming after that. But the world changed after 2022 when ChatGPT was launched. And therefore, AI became centerpiece of everything that is happening today. And the recognition that something like this is extremely valuable for the consumer market. But that is where their focus is. OpenAI is interested in investing in India because they want the consumers of India. But that is not what helps us. It helps them.
Okay, makes sense. I think when ChatGPT was launched and after a few months, your friend CP Gurnani also mentioned that the challenge is accepted now. We are going to also build our own models. So, where do you see this strategy right now? Have we achieved it? Is there anything lacking in India's AI strategy that no one is talking about?
No, I don't think that's an issue anymore.
Okay.
It's been proven that we already have LLMs that are required, and we don't need to depend on global LLMs alone. We can use our own LLMs. As I said earlier, today you can have a free chat GPT and a paid chat GPT. Most users in India are free chat GPT users. So, but it won't be very long when they'll start charging for it. So I think it's important that we have our own products as well.
Definitely, that's true. So a lot of people also talk about when it comes to AI, the brain drain. I mean, that has been going on for a very long time. So do you think it is possible that it's in this age of AI, maybe we can reverse the brain drain and maybe call a lot of people back, build sovereign AI for India? Do you see that as an opportunity or do you think that will keep continuing? People will just keep going and
Well,
building for the West?
Pre-Trump, people wanted to go to the US. Post-Trump, how many people would want to go to the US?
A lot of
And
people are not getting visas.
every piece of budget that was allocated to research has been cut off in America. The only two areas where they have not cut off the budgets is AI and quantum. All other areas, they've cut off the budgets. So a lot of researchers and organized and people are wanting to move out of the US now.
Yeah.
And especially Indians do not feel comfortable anymore in America.
Yes, that
There
is
have been a lot of attacks on Indians in America. So everybody is feeling very uncomfortable. I have talked to a few friends of mine who have been there around 40 odd years. They are all thinking of coming back to India because they say we no longer feel safe in this country.
that is true. Yeah. Any brutally honest advice that you would give to people who are living in the US and also living in India who want to milk products?
I would say that India is a great large market, supportive market, and I think they should look at coming back to India, because let us see how many countries are growing at 6 and 7%. Very few.
Yeah.
India is a leader in that area. GDP growth is the fastest here. This is the place to be today.
So first question, what is your view on Make in India in one sentence?
Not really successful.
Okay. A trend that you think would die soon. A tech trend.
A tech trend.
Yeah.
Tech trend that will die soon.
Or you wish it dies soon. Like hyping up
You know,
AI.
some of the applications that are used today will die because of AI.
A business idea that people are not yet thinking about that you would
Sorry?
want to start. A business idea that you would want to start right now in this AI era.
A business idea which would be wonderful would be to create products in AI for agriculture. I think that is the biggest opportunity today.
Yes. Okay. OpenAI or Anthropic?
Anthropic.
Okay. What frustrates you the most about Indian startup ecosystem?
I still don't see the aspiration that is supposed to be there. I want them to aspire much, much more.
Okay. And favorite Indian company right now apart from HCL?
HCL.
Okay. And the last question, future of the IT industry.
I'm not concerned about the IT industry at all. I think IT industry has evolved very well, and they will come out of any of the challenges that will come again. So every 10 to 15 years, a new challenges come, and IT services companies have actually overcome the challenge. So the AI challenge also, they will be able to overcome.
Okay. Yeah, so Ajay sir, those are all the questions for the rapid fire round as well. If
Today, I'm not in good shape.
okay,
Okay.
okay, fine, that I understand that completely. Okay, thank you so much, Ajay sir, for joining us for What's the Point.
Okay.
It was
All-
lovely talking to you,
Okay.
uh,
Okay. Bye.
and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.